Hello, I'm Evan Price of Green Cheek Beer Co., and this is the Brewer to Brewer podcast from All About Beer. My guest today is Pete Gillespie of Garage Project in New Zealand. He's here for a conversation that goes beyond the brew house and into topics that matter to brewing professionals and curious beer drinkers. Visit allaboutbeer.com and follow on social media, and to support journalism in the beer space, check out patreon.com/allaboutbeer. We'll get into that in just a moment. But first, this message.
First Tee is a proud sponsor of the Brewer to Brewer podcast. They've been working with brewers on a wide range of ingredients and delicious beers. First Tee combines the flexibility of order sizes with the experience you need to create innovative and successful tea beers. They get you the most direct from farm tea selection, so you are working with flavorful and consistent products. You can find more about First Tee's collaborations with brewers and tea ingredients by visiting blog.firsttee.com. That's blog.firstea.com.
So, hello, Pete.
Kia ora, Evan. Nice to see you again, bro.
Is that okay? So that's how you pronounce it. I keep getting these emails.
Yeah, kia ora.
And that's hello or welcome. What does it mean?
It's hello. It can also be thank you if you use it in the right context. But yeah, it's we are interestingly actually a trilingual country. We have three official languages. We have English, Te Reo, which is the Maori language, and sign language is an official language as well.
Ah, that's awesome. I love that.
It is awesome. But then, to be absolutely honest, I'm only fluent in one of them. So, sounds great, but can do better. I'm a work in progress, Evan. Yeah.
Right. I think we all are. So I guess, to just start things off, I think we have to have a little, conversation about you and who you are, and just a real quick rundown where you grew up, how you ended up in New Zealand, how you got into beer, all the softball pitch questions that just kind of start this thing off, and people get warm and fuzzy about this wonderful person they're meeting via audio.
All right. Well, so I was born in Scotland, but my family emigrated, as many people did, when I was about 5 years old. We moved to New Zealand, and then
how was that to pick?
Well, it was probably a job, to be honest. I think my dad probably picked it with that. But, we stayed in Wellington for a while and then moved down to Christchurch, which is down on the South Island. So I did almost all of my school years in New Zealand. But then, as many Kiwis do, the moment that I finished school, literally the same fucking day, I went to the airport, got on a plane and left. It's almost, Kiwis are almost, Kiwis are a flightless bird, but it's almost like migration. It's like you finish school and everyone just departs. I think because New Zealand is so far away we feel so far away in many ways from a lot of the world. There's this real draw for people to just go off, discover the world, do things, and then eventually most of them come back again.
Because I've only seen pictures of New Zealand. I'm excited to visit in a couple months.
I'm going to see you soon. It's going to be awesome. Yeah.
But everyone's seen Lord of the Rings. I mean, the place is remarkably gorgeous. How would it, okay, cool, I'm gonna go tour the world and see what's out there.
Oh, look,
everything sucks.
It is gorgeous, but then if you go around the world, there's a lot of gorgeous places, I have to say. I'm not trying to undermine the New Zealand Tourism Board. Everyone should come. It's delightful, and I get a $5 kickback for every American I can make come over here. But the world is an exciting place, and I think New Zealand is richer for having the people who live in it go elsewhere to discover what the world is like. I think that's good for everybody. Everyone should see that other people live in other ways.
Yes.
And it's cool.
Absolutely.
So, look, I actually moved over to Australia. It was my first actually, that's a lie. I went and buggered around Europe and made an absolute mess of myself for about a year, and then went to Australia to dry out, which isn't a great idea because it's not a great country to dry out in. So look, I mucked around there, went to university, did all sorts of silly things. But you asked, how did I get into brewing? Well, the honest answer to that is I started, gosh, I don't even know how young I was. My grandfather homebrewed, and I used to help him. So I used to
That's
I
incredible.
was very close to my grandfather, and I used to like help him, stir his homebrew when he was making it. And it always gave me the fondest sensation. Sometimes you just, I'll be in the brewery today, and a little smell will just waft past, and it'll kick off just this really fond kind of warm feeling that I'm sure comes from those early experiences. I mean, I remember buying him a big wooden spoon to use as like a mash paddle. And I thought it was the hugest spoon I'd ever seen in my life. And unfortunately, when my grandfather died, we were tidying his house, and I found the spoon, and it really wasn't that big. It was quite small. So I must have been tiny. I must have been so tiny. So look, beer and brewing have always... What was that?
Do you have any recollection of like what he was making, like what kind of beer style he was making?
So that was in Scotland. And so he generally did a mix of, just a kind of a straight lager and darker bitters, those are the things. Yeah. Which, there was just this endless, they hardly ever get kept in the fridge. They used to have like a kind of a sort of a stone outhouse, like a cellar. And we just like, I'd trundle out to the cellar and get these beautiful old bottles. They had an internal like cork, like a screw cork internal.
What?
Yeah, it's how beer bottles used to be in the UK. And you'd like open these up, and they'd come out at lunchtime, and it was always a good time. I have fond memories of it. So yeah, look, I mean, like I said, I went to uni. I was doing other things, but I just I had maybe an early life crisis, and just went, what, fuck this. I really should just pursue the thing that I love to. I've been homebrewing, obviously, and I was just like, But doesn't brewing do that to you, Evan? I mean, you meet so many people that throw away perfectly good careers. They're never going to make the same amount of money that they were getting doing whatever they were doing, and they only do it because they want to brew beer, because it just gets under your skin. It's that Japanese word akaku, which can have a negative connotation, but it basically means, it's more than a hobby, it's an obsession, and beer definitely does that.
I'm not familiar with that word, but that's incredible. I love that. So okay, so then you start homebrewing. First homebrews you were doing.
Homebrewing, yeah, and then I had this epiphany, and I decided I wanted to become a brewer. So I actually ended up going to the UK. Because at the time, I think I was really excited about real ale. There's a lot to love about real ale, traditional English real ale. So I went over and basically blagged my way into a brewing job. I mean, incredibly lucky, just trying to be a charming Antipodean. I managed to like blag my way in. My first job was at Breakspears, which you might have heard of. It was absolutely incredible sort of 250 300-year-old real ale brewery in Henley-on-Thames. It was just the most remarkable place, and the beers were magical. It was wonderful place to start. Unfortunately, it shut down about nothing. It wasn't my fault, I promise. Shut down about kind of like maybe 9 months after I started. Unfortunately, it had been they'd sold, gone public, and the site was worth so much money, they turned it into yuppie flats, and sold the brand as like to a Refresh, I think, is still making Breakspears under a kind of brand contract. But it was sad. There were people working at that brewery who I swear would never get a job anywhere else. Their parents had worked there, and they were working there. It was like a sheltered workshop. It was incredible. Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, and then after that, I worked at a kind of a more scrappy kind of contract brewer. We had our own beers as well, but that was in Horsham. But that was remarkable for a young brewer, because we were brewing beers for all sorts of people. Because real ale in England, it's very easy to set up a real ale brewery. You don't need packaging, you just need open fermenters and firkins. And so there are these tiny little regional local breweries everywhere. And if one of them had success with a beer at a competition or something, they had no way of capitalizing on that, no way of packaging it to send it out. So they'd give us the recipe, and we'd make the beer and package it. And we used to package for all sorts of people, like Green King. I mean, it was a pretty cool place. So great experience. Did that for ages. Had a kid with my partner, so we headed back down under after that. And I worked in Australia for probably another 5-6 years at a place called the Malt Shovel in Sydney. Tried to set up my own brewery in Australia, but the bureaucracy was mind-boggling. Came over to Wellington to see my brother, and he was like, "Why don't you set one up here?" And Wellington is a fascinating town. It's really quite small. There's only 300,000 people in Wellington.
Oh wow!
Yeah, okay. It's tiny, but it's the capital, and there's a real culture of early adopters. It's like people want new things, and they're really supportive. There's I think it's got the highest number of cafes per head of population in the Southern Hemisphere. People just they support new things.
That's cool.
And there were no breweries in Wellington, despite the fact that 57% of all the craft beer in New Zealand was consumed in Wellington by that tiny amount of the population.
Wow.
I was like, why are there no breweries here? So I sold up my house, moved everything over, and within 6 months we'd managed to get something up and running.
Which I feel like we've talked about this before. Was it a 1 barrel kit or
not
or
even
a half
that?
barrel? A half barrel.
All we could afford was basically a tiny little I think it was Brew Magic homebrew kind of. I mean, it was what we could afford. The tiniest brewery I'd ever worked on professionally, and so basically we were able to make about 40 liters of beer per batch.
Wow!
But it's interesting. New Zealand has always been quite blessed with a lot of breweries per head of population. Even though we've got, like the real big mega breweries. We've got Lion and DB are our 2 big ones. But there were always lots of small regional little breweries and craft breweries, but they were all doing kind of very safe, traditional standard selections. So, I set Garage Project up with my brother and Joss, who you've met, who, they enjoyed beer, but didn't have any brewing background. And Joss is more of a kind of business background. But we decided, there's no point in just doing another brewery doing the same thing. So we tried to do something a little bit more interesting and remarkable. So we kicked off doing what we called the 24-24. It was 24 beers in 24 weeks. So 6 months with a brand new beer dropped at a craft bar in town. So we'd take these 2 20-liter kegs down and crank it on. But, it kind of worked. We got like a cult following of people who just fizzed on it. If you didn't turn up at 5 o'clock on a Tuesday night, you wouldn't get the beer. It would just sell out. So it was, it was a good time.
What year was this?
That was 2011.
2011. I love it.
So, and some of the beers we did in the 24 are still mainstays of Garage Project today. Pernicious Weed, which is the poster of it back there. Happy Days, Trip Hop. There's a few of them that still around today. But I was fucking shit scary though, Evan. I mean, it sounds real slick. It wasn't. It was fucking terrifying. There was so little beer, you wouldn't even be able to have like a pint to know what it was like. I'd have little sips out of the fermenter and like, oh fuck, I hope it's okay. You take it down there, put it on.
And then you have you have a kid to support.
I had 2 kids by that point. I've been busy.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
And then I'm
the king of unplanned pregnancies. It's great.
Oh, perfect. They're
the best.
Yeah, you're not alone. And then these 2 kegs that you were able to push out over a 1-week period was
the 2 kegs. Yeah. Okay.
Was that the only production at that point, or was that just one of the things?
Oh, we had no illusions that we were actually. I mean, basically, I just lived off some money that I had tucked away. I mean, we knew that it wasn't financially going to work. I mean, luckily we managed to get the site that we're in, this disused petrol station that we're still, and that's the garage. We say garage, you say garage.
That's
where we managed to like talk our way in there for like no rent to start with. I mean, we honestly must have bullshitted so hard. And we're still in there now, but obviously we're a lot bigger.
So where
But
did
yeah,
the
so
where
look,
did
I mean,
that
it was,
step go from, you have this
yeah.
man, I always loved like talking about how you figure
How do
out
you get it going? Yeah.
how to start a business, right? Because like I know for me and Brian, we were lucky enough to convince a bank to lend us a
Yeah.
bunch of money. And like the vice president of the company or the bank was a home brewer and really like enjoyed the beers that I was making at the time when I was working at Noble. And like, you know, we used Brian's house as collateral for the loan. And like, I didn't have a house. And so like, it's just like these things that you end up trying or working out. So like, um, I love this picture that you're painting where you have this 40-liter uh, brewery. Um, each week you're putting out 2 kegs, and then which is awesome and exciting. It reminds me of like sort of the Dogfish Head story of sorts.
Yeah.
But then at what point is this, I don't know, successful enough to convince yourselves that like, all right, we have to add more equipment, or we have to,
Yeah.
like what
Oh,
were the
look, I mean,
next
I think
steps?
we knew from day one, Evan, that we were going to have to do something because, I mean, it was like holding your breath. In
Yeah.
the movies where they hold their breath and they try and swim through like a tunnel or something. It was like that. But I mean, it was really a very kind of like sort of self-aware effort to build the brand before we tried to go out and get money. Craft brewing wasn't a massive thing in New Zealand. There was no boom on. The banks didn't really give a shit.
Sure.
So we did that intentionally, that 6 months of kind of, building interest and then we got like a very small group of investors who invested enough for us to do that.
That's great.
I mean, the bank, could have been the other way, but I mean, honestly, they were just like, craft brewing.
Yeah.
Who would do that? So
They're just laughing at you. They're just like,
yeah. But I think what we did captured the imagination of a few people who were keen to put a little bit of money in. And look, I mean, we've never had a lot of money behind us. With anything we make, we sort of tend to bootstrap and just shove it back into the business. So we got a 10-barrel brew house to start with, and that was way too small. So we flipped that almost straight away and got a 20-barrel. And we're still lashing that to death at the moment. We did partner up with a brewery up in the Hawke's Bay, and they've got a substantially bigger outfit, and we basically, I think currently about 90% of what they do is our beer. So yeah, and they tend to do our kind of like supermarket. So we sell through supermarkets in New Zealand, as well as our own kind of like tap rooms and web store and stuff, and cool little craft beer shops and things. So yeah. That's us. There you go.
How many places is that?
How many places? Well, we've got Ardo, which is the brewery, and we've got like a cellar door there. Got a tap room across the street. We've got Marion Street, which is our wild facility, which is really cool. That's where I am at the moment. So we do all our spontaneous brewing down there. Obviously, then there's the Hawke's Bay facility. We've got another place up in Auckland. What we hope to do in the future is have more bars. I visited your bar, Evan, your new one, just recently. I mean, it just, I mean, it's incredibly inspirational, and it's what we'd like to have more of. Spaces where you can welcome people in and, have control over how they're enjoying the product that you make. It's like the best beer you ever had. Think back to that magic best beer. And it was definitely, it has to be obviously a great beer in the glass. The liquid has to be amazing, but it's also the space you're in, probably the people you're with, all the planets align, and you have that absolutely fucking magic moment.
Yes.
So, I mean, yeah, if we, the thing with a bar like yours, you can control 2 of those 3 things. You can't necessarily control the people they're with, but you've got the space, you've got the liquid. Yeah, it's a cool thing to do.
I mean, how is New Zealand beer culture is I don't know. There's some kind of British influence, and then that
Mm.
seems to be going away. Like, what's the story there? Like, I'm seeing pictures, with the hand pull setup for cask beer and stuff like that, and like,
It was
like,
definitely, I think, I mean, obviously we're a British colony to start off with. We never had a revolution. We just quietly got on with growing lamb for the empire. That's pretty much all New Zealand was, just a farm. So, it definitely was an early influence. I mean, some of the really like original beers are fascinating. There's one called Tui, which is, it's from the Waikato area around here. It's called an IPA, and it has been for forever. And it's so not an IPA. It's like a sticky brown ale. It's fascinating. It's like dark brown, no hops, still called an IPA. There's these weird little throwback beers around the place.
yeah.
New Zealand beer culture used to be very kind of like, basic, slightly, amber to brown beer. Drinking your beer in riggers, everyone would like take away these big kind of like growlers or whatever that was, or drink in pubs. I mean, craft brewing, I think the early craft explosion was definitely influenced by English real ale. I mean, interestingly, we hardly make any kind of English style beer. I mean, after I left England, I love it. I love real ale. I don't really want to recreate it anywhere else, though. It's interesting.
Well, do you find like I was going through a lot of your lineup and your beers. I mean, do you find though this instinctual influence from your English brewing days for these lower ABV hoppy beers, to where you're
I think
utilizing some of those tricks?
that's a good point to make. That is one thing that is really noticeable. That's a difference between New Zealand in particular and America, is that we have a lot more lower ABV beers. Now, is
Has to
that
do with
because New
taxes, though,
Zealanders?
right?
It's tax, yeah, man.
Yeah,
That's why the UK's got low ABV beer. It's all about cash money. So we
right.
get taxed here on the amount of alcohol in our beer. There's a cutoff point. If you do a beer below 1.4% ABV, there is no excise whatsoever.
Whoa.
Then as the more you have, the more you pay. So if we make like a 10% triple IPA, we're going to pay. It's an absurd amount. I mean,
Doesn't it get up to like half of like?
Oh
what
yeah,
you're...
it's ludicrous. It's more than the ingredients. It's a huge amount of money. So beer is expensive compared to America, and obviously we're often with the bulk of the beer. We'll do special high ABV things, but you'll pay for it for sure. So the bulk of New Zealand's traditional beers are lower ABV, and it just encourages you drink a lot of it.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
know. I brewed in England. You can get drunk on 3.2% beer. You just drink a lot of it, and you
oh
can get
man,
yeah.
yeah. You're borrowing that beer for a short amount of time,
Yeah.
It's just
It's got a
like,
quick throughput. But you're asking about the beer scene. I mean, obviously that difference in ABV is interesting, but the craft revolution has happened everywhere, Evan. And it's had a huge influence on all the beer cultures that I'm aware of around the place. I think the rise of the hazy. I mean,
right.
I went to go and buy some bait to go fishing a little while ago, and I went into my fishing shop, and there's this like salty old sea dog, grizzled old. He's definitely not a hipster, eh? And so I'm going in to buy some pilchards, and I'm like, having a chat with him. I was like, oh, what beers are you drinking at the moment? And he said, oh, I used to drink a lager, but now mostly I drink hazies. And I'm just like,
What in the world?
Mind blowing. And that for me, that was the tipping point. It's just hazy. The term hazy and hazy beer has definitely entered the mainstream here. These are hazies that are like kind of, like 4 or 5%, some of them, a lot of them. But
it's like the beer that we did together,
yes.
Free the Knowledge.
How did that go for you?
Oh man, it was awesome. I mean, I don't think our clientele didn't care for it as much as I had hoped. But the beer was honestly one of my favorite beers that we made last year. 4.5, I think percent, I think is what we did. I can't remember now. Yeah, we had that awesome was it Rakow and Nelson combo?
The magic. It's the magic combo. I mean, that's pernicious weed. Those two together. Nelson Sauvin is a magical hop because it just changes its mood with the different things that you put with it. It's like a very clever actor, you know. You drop them in with somebody else, and suddenly you wouldn't know it's the same person. It's the same with Nelson. Just does so many different things. It can be, you know, like real Sauvignon Blanc, gooseberry wine kind of character, all the way through to real dank, resinous kind of tropical fruit. It's a cool kid.
What hop combo do you feel like brings out that character the most? The Sauvignon Blanc, gooseberry character.
Yeah, I mean, look, honestly, Nelson by itself, even Nelson with a very, very, and I mean very, almost homeopathic touch of Riwaka can really lift it as well. I mean, you do Nelson with Southern Cross, and you get this lovely kind of like zingy, high citrus kind of clean thing. Do it with Rakow, loads of tropical fruit, resin. You know, it's pretty cool. It's a neat little hop.
I've always really loved the Nelson Mosaic combo.
Oh yeah, Nelson Citra. I mean, it really is. It's pretty cool. It just plays so well with others. You know, if I had to do a report card, that's what I'd write. Plays well with others.
I find it to be it's an interesting hop because I find it to be polarizing, where there are people that are 100% into that hop, and then there's people that are 100% not into that hop,
which is interesting because I think given how variable it can be depending on how you do it, I think if you meet someone who says, I don't like Nelson, they just haven't had the right Nelson beer, or they're trying to be wankers and not like something just because it's popular. You know, you're always going to meet people who do that. Oh no, I don't like Mosaic. It's just it's too overdone. I don't like it. Shut up. Mosaic's fucking awesome. I mean, really, come on.
Well, you have to make it look like you know more than you do. So
everyone wants
the best way to do that
a little
is to
bit
have
special, don't they? They all want to, you know, they want to drink upstream from the herd. Oh, I never drink Mosaic beer. No, it's like, oh, really? Okay, whatever.
Yeah, I had
good luck with that.
I had some friends over here one day that were just avid no Mosaic ever. I don't drink that. And so then I blinded them on a 100% Mosaic IPA, and they sat there singing the praises of this beer, and I'm just like, and by the way, that's Mosaic, and they're just fuck off, no way. And you know,
good on you, Evan. You got him.
Well, it's great. I get it, right? Look, I've had a bad piece of chicken breast at a lot of different restaurants. You know, it's like the moment you rotisserie a chicken, though, that chicken breast is real good. And so it's you know, I think the same thing plays in the beer world with these different ingredients where any brewer can mess that thing up. It doesn't mean that the hop
anything
sucks
up if you try hard enough, eh?
Yeah.
But equally, you know, I always find it exciting when you're brewing and you take ingredients that people don't think are sexy or interesting, and you can still create something out of that. That's always I find that quite a fun challenge.
What comes to mind for you for that?
I mean, we've played around with some of the lesser known Kiwi things like Southern Cross, things like that, Pacifica. You can create some really fun beers. You've got to find the right niche for them. You know, one of our we use some American Liberty and Summit in one of our beers, and I mean that they're so kind of like old school, and you never hear anyone. That in fact we're going to have to phase it out because we just can't get a good supply of good stuff. I mean, those hops together it's like a real lemon citrus explosion, and it was real cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we did that in a kind of a super hoppy lager really early on, and that's Pills and Thrills. But yeah, we've noticed just it deteriorating slightly just with the hops over the years. It's always interesting, isn't it? I mean, you probably get the same thing, Evan, but you can become really emotionally attached to a hop, and then over the years it can drift. I mean, obviously, selection when we can get it is a great way of trying to ensure that you get what you want and what you like. But sometimes it's not possible, and you just get this drift. And the hop changes, and trying to work out why is an interesting one for me. I think is it that these hops have been in the ground for longer and their character is changing? Is it seasonal variation? I suspect though that what it is that a hop becomes popular and a lot of people start growing it. Some of them don't grow it with the same care and attention maybe that the early places did, or they grow them in a different spot. And we all know that the terroir of hops is incredibly important. And so suddenly you start getting, a lot of variation. I mean, the two classics for me is Riwaka here in New Zealand and Galaxy in Australia, which you'll get those hops now, and sometimes they are a pale imitation of how they were 10 years ago, which is interesting.
I mean, I think the Galaxy situation is so interesting to me, where when Galaxy at least started being somewhat available here in the States, I don't know, I couldn't tell you how many years ago that was, 12 years ago, 10 years ago, but the quality of hops that and that variation for something like Galaxy is so insanely like messed up, where either you're getting something that smells like hay, or you're getting a garlic onion bomb, or every once in a while you're getting that like insanely cool character that you want, which the way that I always describe Galaxy is like this like fresh tennis ball character. And like, I know it's like a weird thing to throw out there, but it's like that character jumps out in like a really neat way, at least for me, along with some good fruit. But I don't know, I guess like I always heard tales of like I don't remember the hop company that grabs all that Galaxy. I don't necessarily want to like badmouth them on this thing, but like
no, they'll come for you, bro.
Yeah, right. I mean, hopefully they come for me and just give me some good Galaxy, and we'll call it a day. But I always heard there's just like, let's just no talking on badmouth away. No selection on something like Galaxy, and instead let's just throw it all together, all the lots, and mix it all together, and then we have this like homogenous.
I mean, this is a fascinating thing, isn't it, Evan? I mean, it's probably, I mean, look, what better forum to have a chat about this particular topic than, well, it's not called Brewer on Brewer, is it? That sounds like weird pornography. It's Brewer to Brewer. There we go. It's like I mean, we have quite a lot to do with hop growing. So we have a very close relationship with a couple of the farms here in New Zealand. And we invested in a brand new hop farm kind of recently.
We'll
talk about that later. I mean, but we've been around the hop industry quite closely in New Zealand for a while, and that there are these two schools of thought. There's obviously what brewers love, which is selection. I want to select. I want to come to the table, and I want you to put all of your lots on it, and I want to try all of them, and I want to pick the ones that I like. And then there's the opposite mindset, which is if we are going to have a hop with a unified kind of character, we need to amass all of them and we kind of we homogenize it, and
Yep.
we create a single flavor. And it's an interesting one. I mean, obviously I see the validity of that second idea, but the problem is when people start growing hops and not really giving a shit.
Yes.
Or growing hops in the wrong place, but not really wanting to like fess up to that. Or, like there's a whole lot of things. But once you get too many of those, you just tip the character of a hop completely over the cliff. And that's it. It's like,
Right.
Right. Whereas, what does selection do? Well, it tells farmers very clearly what people like and what they don't like. And, if no one's picking your hops, maybe you should have a think about what you're doing. And what you're doing might be when you pick it, what you're doing might be the variety that you grow, or it might be how you process it afterwards. There's a lot of factors, but you're not doing something right. It's an interesting one. What are your thoughts on it, Evan?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you, man. I mean, I think the hop selection part of things is pushing this hop growing industry forward in such a neat way. And the more that you're able to continue this dialogue between brewer and grower, I think we're winning. And the same goes from customer to brewer as well. If you can find those customers that you can take feedback from, that you appreciate or you respect, or a lot of times people just buy what their dollar, or show you what they like with their dollars, though, where it's just like, I can tell you right now, our customer base, we put Citra on a can and or on a beer release, and immediately it's just like, I know that our customers love Citra. And it's interesting, like all the other cool things that exist out there, and sometimes there's like a little bit of hesitance there. It's like, and what is this Rawaka? What is this Nelson? And so but all in all, and in regards to like the hop growing aspect of things, like a conversation going so that the hop grower that's not doing the thing that you want them to do is understands that they need to pay closer attention to that. They can make that into extract, like they're probably not getting as much money for it, but it is what it is.
And it's a fascinating one too, isn't it? Because of course, look at us, there's a world of brewers. You're in a different country, different hemisphere, but when we go to the ingredient cabinet, we've got the same ingredients pretty much. There's some variation, but it's interesting. How do you get that point of difference, other than obviously being very clever and making delicious recipes like you do, Evan? But there's the selection obviously is another method whereby we as brewers, I can see the appeal in it. You can try and find that variety, which or that lot that gives you maybe a little bit of an advantage, in an industry where, like, honestly, like there's a lot of things seem to be moving almost in a way towards kind of like homogeneity. Everyone makes relatively similar beers. There's no shortage of forums on the internet telling everyone how to make delicious beers. Coming across a really shit beer it happens, but it's getting harder, because really, if you're making shit beer, you almost have to really not be looking looking at it, how not to do it.
It's absolutely incredible. I continue to I think that people like us continue to get more and more proud of the beers that we're putting out, especially as we continue to learn, week by week, month by month, year by year, all the ways that we've messed things up in the past. And those beers go down the drain, and people don't taste those mistakes. But like, it's so interesting getting around town and drinking other people's beer and just being like, yeah, damn, this is really good as well. And like, it's a pretty neat time for beer, which makes it that much more difficult to, I think, stand out as doing something special.
Yeah.
Hey, we should probably take a quick break here.
Is it wee break time?
No, I'm supposed to. I mean, you can do that, absolutely. I'm supposed to read this break thing. Okay, here's what I say. We're going to take a short break for this message and then come right back for more of this conversation with Pete Gillespie of Project Brewing.
First Tee is a proud sponsor of the Brewer to Brewer podcast. They've been working with brewers on a wide range of ingredients and delicious beers. First Tee combines the flexibility of order sizes with the experience you need to create innovative and successful tea beers. They get you the most direct from farm tea selection, so you are working with flavorful and consistent products. You can find more about First Tee's collaborations with brewers and tea ingredients by visiting blog.firsttee.com. That's blog.firsdtea.com.
Welcome back. We're back here with Pete, and Pete, I guess one of the things that I'm so curious about, you're right there in this hop growing region, or it's in your backyard. Can you, like, I don't want to interrupt this own conversation, but or this own question, but you have such a neat relationship to where I remember being at the Firestone Walker Invitational this last year.
Yeah.
And correct me if I got any of this information incorrect, but you had this fresh hop beer on where I think you used fresh hops in the brew of this certain lot, and then you took the rest of this lot and then you dried and pelletized this lot, and then you put that in the dry hop, all because of this all being in your backyard and having this relationship. Am I crazy? Is this what happened?
Yeah, absolutely. So that beer is called One Day in March. So
my God.
We pick a day. March is it's basically they start picking hops on the first day of March. They finish picking hops on the last day of March. So you've got March. And during that picking window, there's all sorts of different varieties get picked.
Sure.
But I've got to say, I mean, I personally like wet hop beers can be variable. I'm not in love with them completely. I love the romance and the idea of getting absolutely fresh hops, but there's somebody once tried to tell me that fresh hops are like fresh coriander, or you call it cilantro, don't you? But they were, it's like it's fresh and it's like, oh, it's just, I'm like, no, it's so wrong. Because I mean, fresh hops are lovely and there's a distinctive character to it. But dried hops often, I think, the drying process blows off some of the unpleasant volatiles that you don't want. You get a lot less garlic and onion once it's dried. I mean, garlic and onion could be a defining feature of wet hop beers if you overdo it. I mean, we've buggered around doing all sorts of things. One year we actually cryo froze the wet hops so that we could use them. Oh no, hang on. We did cryo freeze them, but we then cryo dried them so that we could reuse them later.
Yes.
But cryo drying them actually made them hydrophobic. So we threw them in. I don't know what was going on there chemically, but we pulled the beer out at the end and this stuff was dry. It had repelled the beer. So we got absolutely nothing out of it. It was an enormous faff around. But we got fuck all
you're
out
telling
of
me
it.
it literally sucked up.
It just didn't want to touch the beer. It was like it just, you'd open up these freeze dried cones, and it was still dry inside. The beer just didn't penetrate. We got nothing out of it. It was a complete waste of time. But no, One Day in March works really well, and we can only do it because we have this wonderful relationship with Freestyle, who currently I think are the best growers in New Zealand. I mean, their attention to detail is amazing, and they're picking they're picking the hops, they're going into the drying kilns, they're going onto the floor, like so far, so like everybody else in the world. Then they're scooping them up and feeding them straight through the pelletizer. And I mean, their attention to detail at every point is absolutely spot on. So these, they're not getting bailed up and left for 6 months until they get round to it. It's a constant flow. So, and that is why we are able to go get wet hop. And it's a short flight. We get it flown over, so it's it's arriving to us
35
half
minutes.
an hour after picking.
Yeah,
which is amazing. We once almost talked the New Zealand Air Force, all three planes. No, they were disbanding their kind of like one of the, I think they're Huey helicopters. I think after you finished in Nam, you gave us a couple of them, said we don't need these anymore. Why don't you guys don't have any helicopters? Why don't you have these? So they'd actually stopped using them for anything useful. They painted them black and they would fly them over the Motueka area, because as well as growing hops, a lot of people grow weed out in the back sticks. So they fly these black helicopters over, and the local hippies all thought that they had special detectors. So they'd all like rush out and like cut their crop. That's all that they were using them for. So they were disbanding them, and they said, "Oh, would you do a beer?" And we said, "Hey, I tell you what, you fly these fresh hops over from the hop fields, and I had visions of like Ride of the Valkyries playing in giant speakers and then flying. Apparently it got all the way to the top of the New Zealand Air Force. Everyone was gung-ho. They were going to do it for us. And then somebody went, yeah, we probably shouldn't do that. It's probably a misuse of public money. Anyway, but we do have that like a tremendously close relationship with the hop farmers. And look, it's an eye-opener, I think, for any brewer to spend time with hop growers, because you understand what's going on before the product. It's not just this foil bag you rip open. You understand what has happened before, and it makes you much more sensitized to what you should be asking, should be doing. Picking window, it's more than anything else, it's fascinating. If you go to the hop fields, which I've been lucky enough to do, you go out every day and you try the hops, you rub them in the field, and the flavors just change, they develop. So if you pick Nelson Sauvin or Pacifica or whatever, you pick it early in that window, it'll be completely different to how it would be if you pick it late. And it's also not, each field will be different. Some fields go early, some fields go late. So you really have to be there. You can't just go, it's the 24th of March, and I'm going to pick that now. You need to go out, need to rub it, need to pick it. And that's what Freestyle do. And it's inspiring. I mean, one of the reasons why we've got so much to do with the hop industry here is that thing that I was talking to you about earlier. What is the point of difference? So, Freestyle, and, we've got there's a group called Harpy Research that we are kind of a major part of. And it's about trying to come up with new hop varieties, new methods of using hops. We've got a guy who's a fermentation specialist on there. He's amazing, looking at, how can you unlock more flavor with using yeast and fermentation. It's just, it's cool. It's cool. And it's, in a world where we're all got exactly the same ingredients, it's things like that we hope will kind of, give you something interesting to play around with.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I mean, the moment that you create something revolutionary, me or anyone else is going to be knocking on your door being like, hey, Pete, I had this thing from you that was revolutionary. Can you tell me about it? And it's like, sure. I mean, you're all the way across the world. Like, why not? And then next thing you know, like enough people have done that and it becomes a thing. It's like, hazy IPA being like one of those things to where, I remember years ago before the science was really understood on like, how to create these hazy IPAs. We got Sam and other half just being like, look, we do this process. I don't I couldn't tell you exactly why or how or like scientifically what happens here, other than this is what it looks like and tastes like when it's done. And and I think there's something really neat about that. especially when you're in the forefront of like a trend like that. But
Yeah.
with your with all the hop stuff that you're working on, like, what are some of the things that you find the most exciting? Give some hop varieties that
Oh yeah.
you're maybe really excited about that are in the works, like say peacherine or something else, or like.
I mean, the peacherine freestyle came up with peacherine, and I think it was designed to be like a kind of a quick, accessible something they could do now. It's basically like a kind of almost a mutated Motueka. So it
Oh,
tastes quite
interesting.
different, but it's theoretically Motueka, but it throws a completely different character. But undoubtedly, finding a brand new hop variety is the holy grail,
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not an easy task. It's fascinating. I mean, the freestyle guys literally planting thousands of new crossbreeds. We don't do any genetic modification in New Zealand. We can't use GMO yeast. We can't do any of that kind of thing. So it's just old school.
Oh yeah. Wait, so you can't
Boy
even
hop
do it.
meets girl hop. They fall in love. They go to the movies. That
So
kind
you're
of
not
thing.
even doing any of this like thiol experimentation then?
We are. Oh, look, we're doing a lot of thiol experimentation, but we're trying to do it through natural methods rather than doing genetically modified stuff. With it's a lot harder. And if I was going to be brutally honest with you, I'd say that it's nowhere near as effective as the kind of cosmic punches and things that you guys have access to.
I mean, like, we've done, I mean, Green Cheek, we've done a number of those things with these thiol producing yeast, and, with those Phantasm, that, Phantasm Joss has worked on and everything. And like, holy cow, it's not like a small difference. It's like, I mean, punch you in the nose, like I'm here, like kind of character.
Yeah.
What are,
That's the thing. I mean, there are so many, obviously there are lots of different aromatic compounds that the brewer can unlock or have in their beer. Thiols are fascinating because you get so much out of so little. So Peter Bircham, who's our kind of the yeast scientist that we have working with us at the moment, he was saying, one drop, if you put one drop
into a swimming pool
in an Olympic fucking swimming pool, it will reek. The smell will be enormously apparent. So it's you unlock even the tiniest amount of that. And the thiols are everywhere. They're locked into our grain, they're locked into the hops, they're locked into just about everything. It's not just Phantasm. Phantasm's super high in some of the more desirable ones, but it's everywhere. I mean, that's the crazy thing about some of these thiol activating yeast, is that you don't even need to put hops in anymore. You could just mash grain, put this yeast in, and the yeast will cleave and liberate the thiols in the grain and create tropical fruity character without a hop even going near it. I mean, I don't recommend that, but isn't that interesting? Look,
pretty neat.
I mean, thank goodness, Evan. It keeps us excited as brewers, doesn't it? It never gets dull. There's always like a new challenge. I think, if we were just banging out Citra hazies day in, day out, you might feel like maybe, you needed more to life, but there's always something exciting happening.
I think it's great, man. I think it's great. Let's see. Question for you is, when it comes to selecting New Zealand hops specifically, are there like, what are some of the big highlights or recommendations in regards to like, successes or fails aromatically that like someone like yourself is either after or not after?
So you're talking about hops that are available to people now, not the kind of experimental ones?
Right.
Yeah. Look, if I could give one piece of advice, one pithy little piece of advice to people, Riwaka stick it on the hot side. But it's not a secret. New
Yeah.
Zealand brewers, old school New Zealand brewers, were always like, yeah, it's a hot side. That's a hot side hop. We've become so enamored with the dry hop as the way to get the most out of beer. I
Sure.
think we run the risk sometimes of forgetting about what you can do on hot side. I find it fascinating how there's this sort of cyclical thing in brewing,
Yeah.
Trends sort of come and go, and it's like a pendulum. Sometimes it just swings a little bit too far.
Yep.
And then, and it's not like what we're doing is wrong. It's just you can create different beers by doing different things. When I started my brewing career, it was all about the whirlpool. Everything was whirlpool.
Yeah.
And you did some dry hopping. When I dry hopped in the UK, we dry hopped cold. Like, the beer finished, we put it on chill.
You threw it on the cask?
Some hops in. Casks would have it. But even when we were doing we had some uni tanks. We were still mucking around there. But it would go in there and cold. And then we went into warmer dry hopping, and then suddenly it was like hot side is wasteful. We stopped hot siding, and
yes.
And then it's just like massive loads of dry hop going in at different times, and you've got to have biotransformation, so it's got to be early, and then oh my god, we've got hop creep, it's got to be late, and it's like
right.
There's just all of these wonderful things go on. And look, I don't think any of them are wrong. This is the thing,
right.
It's not like you're doing it wrong. It's just different, and you will get different characters. And I think more and more people just, need to decide what characters are they actually after, and what can they achieve. Hot side is fascinating. I think one of the most interesting things recently was people suddenly, Idaho 7 came out. I got hold of it. I dry hopped with it. I was like, boy, that's a bit yawn, like I'm not really very excited about that. But then, I certainly wasn't the first person to talk about it, but put it on the hot side, and suddenly, Idaho 7 gives you this lovely kind of background tropical character that you can build on. And that's it. It's beer should be about layers. You're laying down potentially sometimes quite subtle flavors, and then you'll end up with a far more interesting beer at the end.
I love that. I mean, what a great reminder. I think that we sometimes get a little lost as the finished product, and I know, at least for me, I mean, at least when I was more hands-on working in the brewery every day, instead of managing a bunch of people, it's like
I hear you.
Tasting the beer along the way, was always very important to me, and how those how the interaction was. What did that whirlpool edition do? Was it? I put more in that time. Was it actually worth it? Hey, I threw cryo in that time. Was that worth it? And you kind of keep going down this path, and until it's just that side doesn't matter. I'm gonna put it all on the cold side. 10 pounds per barrel. Here I go. Boom. And then
delicious. It works. Don't muck with it.
Yeah. Right.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's so cool. Is it? Do you pronounce it Mutri or Muteri?
Muteri. Muteri. The upper Muteri.
Yeah. Muteri. Okay, yeah.
You're coming over. You're coming over for harvest, so we'll go and explore. It's a beautiful part of the world. It's pretty nice.
Yeah. I gotta do that. Let's see. I don't really have much other big questions. I love the meandering conversation more than direct.
We definitely meandered.
Yeah, it's good, man. It's good. I think.
How did your non-alcoholic beer turn out?
Oh man, it was a super fun project, man. I really appreciated your help and advice with some of those things, and it's been a cool thing to be able to drink for dry January. One of I absolutely loved talking to you about this, where you were talking about this idea where people are coming in, and some people, are drinking just non-alcoholic beer. No disrespect at all to that at all. But other people are just lengthening out their night or their day with these non-alcoholic beers, where it's like, cool, I'm gonna have one IPA, and then I'm gonna have a non-alcoholic IPA, and then I'll go back to an IPA again, and then just being able to. And so my wife and I did that recently, and it was wonderful, man. We woke up feeling like $1,000,000 and rose out of bed. It was great. But yeah, I mean,
is it a big thing in the States yet, Evan?
I don't. So I see non-alcoholic beer definitely coming up. I mean, there's a brewery down the street from us that's, I don't know, I think producing something like 9 or 10,000 barrels a year of non-alcoholic beer. I don't know how far they distribute that or whatever else, but there's definitely a market for it, There's a market for sure for like weed drinks as well, that continues to be like a bigger thing too. Is just here in California, cannabis in general is like, something that people are after, which is wonderful. It doesn't give you a hangover. Like, I'll take it. But for the non-alcoholic beer thing, I mean, I think ours was a little light bodied. I don't know the workaround for that. Oh, I sent you some, by the way.
Hopefully it turns up. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it does. I mean, hopefully I sent it to the right place. I don't remember now, but yeah,
I'll keep my eye open.
I got some.
I mean, it's been fascinating. In New Zealand, it is, if you had to pick a current trend, it's non-alcoholic beer. Whether it's that everybody was just locked away for COVID, in lockdown, and just drank too much and just came out the other end being like, I am a revolting.
I was a mess. Yeah, I mean, I got one of the things that I did is I got insanely into tiki drinks. And there's this wonderful book by Martin Kate called Smuggler's Cove, and it's this bar in San Francisco here in California. And I just got heavy into this whole thing where I'm making all my own syrups, and I'm getting I'm an essential worker, of course, but like I have to wear a mask at work. I can't do anything. And then I finally get home, to my wife, and it's like, all right, we're having
a tiki party, baby.
Yeah, like let's have 3 tiki drinks, and then go to bed. And it's like we were just like, drinking like 9 ounces of rum a night, and I'm like, oof, like
Pump the brakes.
That was aggressive. Yeah. So yeah, I feel I relate to the like definitely turning things up during COVID.
I don't know if it's that or just also, maybe the response to the fact that a lot of craft beer is, super high ABV. I mean, we're routinely doing, 7, 8, 9% beers, and if you're wanting to have a night out with people or even, drink a few beers at home, they can get on top of you pretty quickly. I bumped into a chap. So, one of our biggest sellers now is is Tiny, which is our non-alcoholic beer. And it's just continues. I thought it was just a weird flash in the pan. We made a non-alcoholic beer and it was fun to do. It was a good challenge. I really enjoyed it. But it's really kind of like taken off a bit. And I had this chap come up to me and he's just like, oh, I love that Tiny. It's amazing. And he's like, I like to drink 3 beers each night. Every night, I want 3 beers. He's like, but I can't drink 3 of your 9% double IPAs. I just can't. So he's like, so I have 2 Tinies, and then I have 1 can of normal beer, and that way I'm only having 1 beer a night, but I'm feeling like I'm achieving it. So it's like you with your kind of like mood adjustment. You can drink till you get to that perfect spot. I want to just stay here all night. And then I guess you can like switch in and out of alcoholic and non-alcoholic and just maintain and be a happy little camper. It's a pretty interesting one. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you looking into I know you have the hazy non-alcoholic beer.
Yeah,
You
we're
have
just
an
about to release
XPA.
an XPA, which
Oh.
is I think probably, different, potentially even better than the first one we did. I shouldn't say that.
Ooh. Yeah,
Beers are
you
like
know.
children. You should never show any kind of, favoritism. It should depend entirely on their behavior,
I use the same line, but then I absolutely break that rule all the time at the same time. Yeah, I feel like dark non-alcoholic beer is like one of the best things that I feel like I've tried, to where like you can build the body, you get that
absolutely, you can
roast.
find other things to do the work that alcohol would be doing. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah.
Pretty neat. Well, Pete, I loved this conversation, man. I appreciate you coming on this whole thing with me. I mean, the amount of how we could. I mean, this should be a 2-hour podcast.
We could do another 3 hours, bro.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
no, it was an absolute pleasure chatting to you, Evan. It always is. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in person for Harvest. That'll be fucking great.
Yeah, it's gonna man, I can't wait to, see all the hobbits, wherever all the hobbits live. I'm not sure where I'm not sure where they are, but I'm gonna find them. Okay.
I'm actually quite thankful that Hobbit fever is dying out a little bit in New Zealand. For a while,
was it crazy for a while?
Oh fuck, it was awful. It was just like everything was Lord of the Rings Hobbit themed. It was just like,
yeah, you just have people walking around your town dressed as Gandalf, and there's
it's kind of got, there's a touch of, how people go to Mecca to to go to the birthplace of Islam. You get a lot of Tolkien nerds coming to New Zealand. It's like Tolkien didn't live here, bros. Anyway,
awesome.
it's yes, it'll be fun. I'll release some hobbits for you at the airport, and they can scurry around.
All right, let me see here. I have to say something now, Pete. Okay. Pete will be back on the next episode of this show as the host, having a conversation with a brewer of his choosing. That'll be on the air in the next 2 weeks, so make sure you tune in for that. Visit allaboutbeer.com and follow on social media to support journalism in the beer space. Wait, to support journalism in the beer space, check out patreon.com/allaboutbeer. I'm Evan Price of Green Cheek Beer Company. Thank you for listening to the Brewer to Brewer podcast. Boom.
Boom. Drop the mic.
This episode was brought to you by First Tea. First Tea delivers the ingredients and experience brewers need for delicious beers and innovative flavors. Flexible order sizes and direct from farm teas for your next brew. Find out more about First Tea by visiting blog.firsttea.com. That's blog.firsttea.com.